Emotions are so easy to understand. Said no one ever. Because emotions are tricky. They're so random. It's kind of like emotions are speaking their own language that only they understand. And I know this, like for my whole life. I think I've been a sensitive person, but I just have not understood my emotions at all. And then it has been so much easier to just kind of shut them off and push them away. And maybe if you have tried this strategy, you know by now that that doesn't really work. They just come back and bite you in the ass later on. So while it's tricky to understand the emotional language, there are definitely a couple of things we can do to make it easier, and definitely mistakes we can make that is making emotions a lot harder to understand than they might need to be. So here goes. 5 steps to becoming emotionally fluent. Step 1 to become emotionally fluent is to not limit our own emotional language. Think of it this way. Emotion, stand for energy in motion. It's just a kind of energy you feel in your body. The way we speak, though, is through words. And words are something we have just made up to put a meaning onto something. And the thing is, when we are limiting the amount of words we're using to describe emotions, we're also limiting our experience and our ability to understand them. So in the English language, there are over 3,000 different words that describe emotions. 3,000! And there are for sure emotions that doesn't even have words yet. Still, there's so many variations of ways we can feel. But most of us, so many people, when they're being asked, okay, write down all the things you have felt in the last week, they might be listing somewhere between 10 and 20 emotions. And they often list twice as many negative emotions as positive emotions. And maybe you can imagine that that kind of language is really limiting your understanding of how you feel. Let's say that you feel sad, but you're telling yourself that you feel bad. Sad and bad are very different experiences. You might feel disappointed because someone let you down, but you're telling yourself that you feel depressed. And that's a very different experience than being disappointed. And the words you're using are then generating more energy and emotion, which is then it becomes a mess. So it's quite important that we start expanding our emotional vocabulary. One way you can do this is just to Google a list of emotions. Maybe my editor can put up an image here of different emotions, or we can put a link down below. But start really taking the time to, when you feel something, feel in. What am I feeling? No, I'm not angry, I'm frustrated. You see, those nuances are going to make a big difference for you to be more emotionally fluent. All right? The second step to becoming emotionally fluent is to get out of a very destructive mindset, which is good and bad thinking. And this happens when we label some emotions, usually anger, sadness, frustration, disappointment, pain, fear, as bad, and the ones we want to feel more of as good. And there are several reasons for this. 2 big ones are that when we put all the bad emotions under this umbrella of bad, we often create additional painful emotions from that. Because if we label our sadness as bad, we might start feeling worried or frustrated or fearful because we're feeling sad. And now we're negatively just snowballing downwards and start to feel more and more bad emotions. So that's one reason. But we're also losing our emotional fluency. To give an example, I woke up this morning and I woke up at 5 a.m. because my neck was hurting, so I couldn't sleep. And I knew I was going to be in front of the camera today, and I instantly got annoyed and frustrated, and I felt bored because now I'm not going to be able to have as much fun in front of the camera as I would like to. I felt a bit guilty because now maybe I can't deliver the value I would like to deliver to you guys that are watching me. So I had this whole buffet of emotional experiences. And when I woke up, I said, fuck, this is going to be a bad day. But by doing that, I create more negative emotions, and I also lose my emotional fluency. I can't see that I'm actually feeling maybe 10 different emotions at the same time. And as we are going to discover in the third step, is that all of those emotions are useful somehow if we can decode the meaning they carry. Let's move on to step number 3, which is decoding how you feel. And I know it's so tempting that when we feel bad emotions, that we start telling ourselves that, oh, this sucks, I wish they could go away, I don't like this at all. And even though you don't have to like how you feel, a perspective that I have that I find real helpful is that everything is here to help me. Everything I feel is there for a positive purpose. And by that I mean that emotions are highlighting 2 things for us. They're highlighting if our needs are being met and if we're living in accordance to our values. And this is a useful thing. Emotions are like messengers from our needs and our values. So I want to take some time to explain needs and values to you. Needs can be anything from having something to eat, to having some place to sleep, to more complex needs like feeling meaning in your life or love or friendship. For example, when I woke up this morning and I was in neck pain, I was in pain, which was a messenger that my need for feeling biologically healthy was not met. I got frustrated because I felt like I couldn't be giving as much energy into this creation today. So my need for creativity was not being met. And so on and so on. All those 10 different things I was feeling was highlighting a reasonable and healthy need underneath. So negative emotions, messengers for a healthy need. And when I listen, I can start being creative and find ways to move towards feeling those needs. Values are a little bit different than needs because they are personal. So values are essentially what is important to you. What do you prioritize in life? For me, 2 highly important values are creativity and consistency. So when I woke up this morning, the fact that I didn't sleep well and that my neck was in pain was threatening those 2 really strong values of mine. And therefore I started feeling negative emotions, which is very reasonable. It's like my conscience is trying to tell me that, hey, you are currently not living in the way that you say you prefer to live, right? And my conscience wants me to take action towards preventing that this is happening again. And what you need to understand about values is that it's so crucial that you choose your own values, that you choose what is important to you, what you prioritize in life. Because if you don't know what is important to you, you are on autopilot going to make what other people think is important for you as well. And that usually boils down to what society think is important or what your parents think is important, or maybe your peer group. And usually those are shitty values like status or pleasure or, wealth or anything that might not actually bring you the happiness that you want, right? So choose your own values. That is going to make it so much easier for your conscience to correct you towards moving to something that actually makes sense for you. If your highest values are unconscious, that inner guidance of yours, that compass, is just going to turn into a tyrant that will keep pushing you towards something that you haven't actively chosen in the first place. And that is just a massive setup for emotional confusion and just feeling, I feel something feels wrong. I feel like something is missing in my life, but I don't know what it is. And it's because you haven't chosen what's important to you. So take your time to philosophize and pick wisely. That is how you decode your emotions. All right. It's time to get practical in step number 4, which I call how you doing. And I think the most common lie in our society is to the question, how are you doing? Because everyone answers good. And not only is it good or bad thinking, it's usually also a facade, a mask we put on, because we don't want to show how we really feel, because it's inappropriate. But I have a rule for myself that I'm not allowed to answer good to that question. I want people to see the real me, and I want to practice my emotional fluency. So when I get that question, I take a moment and I feel into my body. What's real in me right now? You might ask me now, how are you doing? I would take a moment, and I would say, I'm happy right now. I'm having fun in front of the camera. I feel creative, and I had some pain this morning, so I thought this would be a shitty day, but now I'm relieved that I'm actually having fun. And can you see how I start practicing, noticing how I'm really feeling, and having that mindset? Just that little thing every time someone asks you how you're doing can start giving you opportunities to practice your emotional fluency. And you can do this with yourself as well. You can check in with you during the day. How am I feeling? Take a moment, feel into your body, and then you can be even more real, right? Because it's when you say, I feel good, I feel bad. That is when you lose your fluency. That is when you start getting confused. So this is where I want you to practice. And I wanted to get this practical step in before number 5, which is going to be a little bit more advanced, but I'm looking forward to the next step. Step number 5 is called radical acceptance. And this is a bit more advanced, but I really want to bring it up here, because here is where a lot of my coaching clients get into trouble. And that is when they are doing spiritual practices like letting things go. So maybe if you've been into meditation or you read some spiritual books, you come across the concept of letting how you feel go. And the idea is basically that you feel sad, and then you're practicing not to think about those thoughts or being involved in that feeling, and kind of let it go so it goes away. And I think while the intention with that is good, and hey, for some people this is useful. For someone that has major aggression issues, to the point where someone bumps into them on the street and their thought is, I'm going to kill that person. That person, for him, it's useful to practice letting things go. Maybe I should let go of that thought. But if you're not in that state, remember that all thoughts and emotions are here to help you. So instead of trying to let them go, which is basically just ignoring how you're feeling, start interacting with the way you're feeling, right? So I feel sad. Then look at that as, okay, this emotion is like a dear friend of mine that is telling me he's sad. How would I interact with that? I would probably use a soft voice, and I would say, tell me more. Like, why are you sad? Oh, I'm sad because of this and this and this. Tell me more. And interact with how you're feeling and your thoughts with general curiosity. And even if you don't really trust yourself and how you're feeling, start thinking of it as rebuilding that relationship. Because if you have not ever in your life, like I didn't have, developed the capacity to speak an emotional language, you have a lifetime of negative experiences with the relationship you have with yourself. Think about it. You have probably never interacted with your emotions the way your emotions need you to interact with them for them to feel good. So it's like you're in a very toxic relationship with yourself, and letting how you're feeling go is just going to make that relationship even more toxic. It's like a parent that has a child that is angry or sad or out of control, and the parent is just closing the door and going to another room or kicking him out of the house. You would never do that to a child if you're a good parent. If you're a good parent, you would sit the child down, you would interact with them, listen to them, be present with them. And that's exactly the way I want you to interact with your own emotions. Don't be with yourself or say things to yourself in a way that you wouldn't do to that child, because it's not emotionally helpful. I call that radical acceptance. Whatever you feel, even if you don't prefer it, accept that it's here for positive reasons. You just need to interact with it in a different way to start getting benefit from it. Right? Radical acceptance is accepting that every emotion you have is like that child, and you don't want to speak to them in a mean way or ignoring them. Even though it doesn't feel good, radical acceptance is inviting everything. I hope that makes sense. If you have any more questions, please, I want to be there for you. I want to help you. Write to me on YouTube, Instagram, send me a post in a bottle on the sea. I don't care. Get in touch with me, because I want to interact with you guys. I want your lives to be better. I want you to feel more clarity and be better at understanding your emotions. That's what I'm here for. Either on more of these videos, I can help you in the comments, or if you want to dive really deep, I offer personalized personal development coaching. And for that, you can go to my website, whatsmissing.com. And I'm so grateful you're here and watching me. It means the world. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care.